Hey guys, back again. I got a lot of feedback on my other videos saying that they were actually really helpful. So I decided to continue, make another one. It was originally supposed to be a 3-part series, and then it became a 4-part series, and now we're on video 5. Today's video is going to come from, kind of inspired from a question I got from one of my students about the FRQs. So if you are one of mine watching this, and this was your question, here it is being answered. Live, well, not really live, but in person. And if not, if you're visiting from elsewhere, welcome, and hopefully this helps you out too. Okay, so what we're talking about today is we're turning the definitions into applications for the FRQ. The College Board rubric says that definitions don't actually score. And I know you guys got an email from College Board saying something about you don't need to define the terms, but a lot of us teachers encourage that you do because of this second part. They may be used to enhance the application. So what that means is if you just have a completely correct, best definition in the world, the reader knows that you know what you mean, but it doesn't connect to the prompt in any sort of way, you don't get any points for that definition. This is where College Board's going to be looking to see if you know your stuff. This is specifically where they're going to be looking for the cheating part. Standard definitions can only be really paraphrased so much. If your teacher explained to you that, a specific neurotransmitter does this, and an entire class worth of students says that, serotonin regulates mood, for example, and the entire class worth and most AP students are going to say something along those lines, that's fine. But what they're really looking for is your application. Okay, they're not going to knock you for plagiarism on a pretty standard definition that can really only be paraphrased so much. The way that they're looking to see if you know your stuff is, can you apply it to the prompt? For more information on any of that, you can check out my videos on the how-to FRQs, especially for FRQ number 1. So, do you even need to include a definition in your response? The short answer is not really, but in order to do that, you really, really have to know your stuff. Like I said, the definition can be helpful. It's not going to score on its own. If your application is a little bit fuzzy, the definition can help you out, and it kind of gets you into a good habit of explaining the definition in terms of the prompt if you have the definition first. So even though including the definition is, like I said, usually recommended by your teachers, and College Board said you don't have to, there's a way to include it to kind of make it make sense within the context of what you're writing, and it actually kind of saves time if you can kind of wrap it into your response. Let me show you what I mean. So you're going to get good at this through a lot of practice. Go into the AP Classroom, write the optional student practice FRQs. We, your teachers, can see those. So instead of writing something along the lines of the example I have here, okay, motor neurons are nerve cells forming a part of pathway which impulses pass from the brain or spinal cord to a muscle or gland. That is copied directly from Google. Shame on me. But you can kind of see that this standard definition really doesn't apply to a prompt in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so then the next sentence is what applies to the prompt. Jessica uses her motor neurons to run around the track. So in this case, the definition is needed because Jessica uses her motor neurons to run around the track. Yeah, kind of, sure. It just doesn't explain how. This might be enough to score depending on the rubric, depending on the given year, but here at least you're like, okay, it's going from brain to legs, and then she's using that to run around the track. So the second example I have here, Jessica's brain communicates to her legs via her motor neurons to move and run around the track, kind of combines that definition and the application at the same time. Another way you can get really, really good at this is practicing self-referencing. Self-referencing is not just another vocab term we learned about in class. It's something you can actually use in your day-to-day life to help you study without, say, sitting down and studying, for example. For those of you who have forgotten, the self-referencing effect is the tendency to recall information best when it is put into a personal context. So in your everyday, day-to-day going about things, start thinking about what psych terms apply in different situations. Here's a couple of examples that I thought of this afternoon. You may be experiencing some of these things right now. Okay, so you can apply personality theories and motivation theories to the characters in whichever TV show you are currently binge watching. Okay, so for example, why would Carol Baskin feed her husband to tigers? Was there incentive for her to do that? Is it something in her personality caused by childhood conflict that caused her to feed her husband to the tigers, right? That didn't really require opening up my textbook. I'm just kind of thinking in terms of psych vocab. If you're spending more time with your pets and you can train them to do a trick, sounds like a good review of operant conditioning to me. My dog will sit and stay for a cookie. She'll pretty much do it automatically if I have a cookie in my hand. She pretty much parks it automatically. If you're spending more time with your parents and siblings, sounds like you can review some developmental psych in there. Are your parents having a particular parenting style? Is your younger sibling in one of the particular Piaget stages? Where are your siblings fitting on the Erikson stages? And then this last one kind of is the easiest one to self-reference. We all have a brain. We all have neurotransmitters running through our body. We all have hormones. We have a nervous system. We have an endocrine system. What's it doing right now? And that's kind of get us into the big example for this video. What I want you to start thinking about is how we can practice some self-referencing with parts of the brain. So here's just a quick, if you want to screenshot it really quickly, a list of all the parts of the brain. I've grouped them out kind of into each specific area of the brain. I mentioned in my how to do an open note test that this is a good technique for that. So I'll give you a second if you want to screenshot it, if you don't have them all down. And then the thing you probably really want to screenshot is this, the basic review of the functions before we actually get into our practice. So I'll pause for a second and let you pause the video and get these down or make sure that these are correct. Okay, so let's practice some self-referencing. This afternoon, you are going to go to the grocery store. How can each of the functions of each of the part of the brain help you? What might happen if your brain malfunctions while you are shopping? So let's think for now about some examples that we can have shopping in a grocery store and how we can self-reference in the grocery store. I'm going to go back one slide to our list. Okay, so the brainstem, reticular formation, and medulla, we should know that if anything happens to those particular areas of our brain while we are in the grocery store, it's going to end with us not breathing, not having a heartbeat anymore. It's going to be bad. So we can kind of check off, malfunction of any of those three as being coma or death. Pons, okay, so we're not sleeping in the grocery store. Facial expressions, okay? The pons allows me to smile at the greeter at the front of the grocery store. Our cerebellum, dealing with our balance. This allows me to reach up, to stand up on my tippy toes and reach the spaghetti on the tippy top shelf without falling over. Thalamus, that's sending the sensory information. I feel a little bit of a chill, okay? It's walking through the refrigerated section. The thalamus sends that information to my parietal lobe in the somatosensory cortex. Pituitary gland is going to regulate my endocrine system. Now, typically when we think about hormones in the endocrine system, we really only think about reproduction, but the pituitary gland is also kind of focused on all of our hormones. So we're in a grocery store, we're around food. Our pituitary gland may be sending off some signals that we are hungry. Our olfactory bulb is going to be us smelling the oranges to see if they are ripe, smelling the cookies coming from the bakery. The hippocampus, maybe before we walked into the grocery store, we made a list, and that memory of what that list was supposed to look like is in our hippocampus. Amygdala deals with emotion. particularly fear and particularly anger. So maybe your amygdala is what's getting mad at someone blocking the aisleway as you're trying to get to the Cheerios. Hypothalamus deals with our 4Fs, the feeding, fever, fighting, and reproduction. So the F we can focus on here would probably be feeding. We're in a grocery store around food, so kind of in combination with the pituitary gland, the hypothalamus whispers to the pituitary gland to release the hormones to make you feel a little bit hungry, and that cake sitting on the bakery window is a little bit more appealing. Frontal lobe deals with our decision making. We can say that this is how we decide between bow tie pasta or angel hair pasta when we're standing in the aisle trying to decide which box of pasta we are purchasing. Motor cortex also lives on your frontal lobe. That's you walking up and down the aisles. Broca's area also lives there. That could be you telling the cashier that you have a coupon that you want to use. Parietal lobe, I already mentioned, it processes you feeling cold after walking through the refrigerated section, gets that message from your thalamus. Your occipital lobe, this is processing your visual information, seeing that the zucchini are green, the tomatoes are red, the oranges are orange. Temporal lobe is you hearing the announcements or hearing the elevator music, so to speak, going through the PA system. Wernicke's area also lives there, so you're interpreting that the cashier is asking, do you have any coupons, cash or credit, whatever. Left hemisphere controls the right side of the body and language in most people. You can say you reach up with your right hand to pick something off of a shelf, and it is the left side of your brain that's doing it, and then the opposite for the right hemisphere. You go to reach for a can of soup with your left hand, and it is your right hemisphere that has sent that command. And then last but not least, the corpus callosum. This is a little bit tricky to apply in a situation like this, but kind of related to the left and right hemisphere. If you really, really wanted to get technical in your answer, you would say, when I reach for the can of soup with my left hand, that information travels from my right hemisphere across the corpus callosum into the left hemisphere to communicate that when I decide that I need to tell, the person standing there, I need help or I need a particular can of soup or whatever. The corpus callosum is going to be integral in multiple functions. So if you're seeing something or reading something out loud, you seeing the words plus saying them out loud is going to require communication across the entire brain. So hopefully that was a little bit helpful for you. If nothing else, hopefully at least it was a good review of different parts of the brain. But really, the big takeaway from this is you should be thinking about how you can apply your psych vocab into your day-to-day life, because that's going to make your studying easier for this. And honestly, that's the reason why so many people do well in this course and why this exam generally has such a high pass rate, is because people are able to make use of that self-referencing effect. As always, let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.